As your kids move away and start their own life, you've got tons of time on your hand to critique, to wonder, what did I do wrong? What did I do? I didn't do enough of this. I should have done more of that. This was important, I thought at the time, and it's meaningless at the time. And it's been a really difficult, 18 months for me as my kids moved out of the house. I mean, it's the hardest, emotionally, the hardest time of my life. And I thought I had pretty, emotionally difficult periods of my life. This has just torn me apart in so many ways, and you have to put it all back together and kind of make sense of all of it. And I think I'm close to doing that, but as you now have holidays where some of the kids are not there because they don't have to be, they have other priorities, whatever. You pine for the days when we're all together, and you were thinking when you were in bed, you were thinking, oh, don't come in. No one's allowed to come into the room until 8:00. See, that's an 8. When that little hand is on the 8 and that little hand is on the 12, then you can come into the bedroom and wake up mom and dad. And nobody goes downstairs until we go downstairs first and plug in the trees. You just try to get through those days at times because you're so tired, but you pine for those. The most empty. I don't know if I can tell you the best Christmas. Yeah, I think it happened actually during COVID, but the best Christmas, it's hard because there's a few of them. The worst Christmas, I can tell you right now, is I remember I was broke, dead broke. Stu, he was like 18 years old and he's living in an apartment. He's got a nicer apartment than I did. We lived in the same complex. I was like 35 or 40 and I was completely broke. He was like a king in a palace compared to me. And I remember this Christmas, so broke, and I was with my daughter and we were in a CVS, and she was there by the cash register, and there was this little ornament of, I don't remember if it was, Herbie the elf or Rudolph, but it was from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and it was a little teeny tree ornament. And she's like, oh, that is so nice. She was little. And I thought, oh. And she didn't see me, but it just broke my heart because all I could think of is, I can't even afford that. I'm such a loser as a dad. That was not my worst Christmas. My worst Christmas was the first time I had real success, and I decided I'm going to buy everything I have ever wanted for my kids. And literally, the boxes were almost up to my waist. I mean, I had all the kids and all the presents and everything you could possibly want. And it was so empty. That was my worst Christmas. And my kids never talk about that Christmas. Never. There's something that happens, especially to men, I think, that we come at this time of year and we feel like a failure if we can't afford things. And this feeling shows up, and most of us as guys, we don't talk about it because we don't want to talk about these feelings. And I think we should, because I think we all feel the same way at times. And when the house is quiet and the lights are all out and you're staring at numbers that just don't add up and you're wondering, how am I going to explain to my kids why things aren't underneath the tree? Because why you want to give that. That's the way you show love, perhaps. And you want to give that. And part of it is because it's the things you didn't have growing up, and you knew how you might have felt. And so that fear says, I'm a failure. I'm coming up short as a dad. Not because you don't love them, not because you didn't try, but because you tried You do love them. And it didn't happen. And the world is expensive and pride is heavy. And Christmas or birthdays now just has a price tag on everything. But there are moments that were never meant to be bought, ever. Somewhere along the line, we let that lie creep in and we bought into it. The lie that says, what I give is what you're worth. That lie is absolute poison, and it's absolutely not true. Because if it were true, then the men who built this countries and that had to raise their own barns, the one-room houses, if that's true, then all of those guys were failures, and they weren't failures. If it were true, then dads who come home with empty hands after a lost job, but a full heart after a hard day, are somehow less than, and they're not. They're better than. And so are you. You think that your kids are counting boxes. And quite honestly, teenage years, they might be. They might be. But they grow out of those. You just put up with the teenage years. They're coming, they suck, they go away. They're not counting boxes. They're not looking at labels. Here's what I believe they remember. You. They're counting on you. Not for the... I grew up in a house that we would consider poor today. I didn't think of us as poor. We just were. It's just the way we lived. Your kids are watching you, how you carry disappointment, how you carry and handle frustration, how you speak when you think it doesn't matter or you think nobody's listening. They're learning from you what a man does when life just doesn't cooperate. And they'll never learn it from something that you tell them. You know, kids, when life doesn't cooperate, they don't learn it that way. Trust me. I don't think my kids could quote a damn thing I've ever said. Because there have been a lot of things that I said. Because I remember my dad used to, we can survive anything as a family, but we cannot tolerate lies because we'll never survive. Okay, I remember that all the time. I am that I am. The I am is the most important thing a man can ever say. Be careful how you follow that. I don't think my kids can. And I said it all the time, but I don't think my kids can quote me. But my wife said, yes, they can, and yes, they will, believe me. The things that we do, the man that we are, whether you know it or not, is far more valuable than anything that can be wrapped into paper. I know you want to give them everything, because I did. Every dad does. I still do. But everything isn't stuff. Everything is teaching them now that their value is not measured by what they can buy or show off. That's what you have to make everything. Teach them. It's who they are, who they become when things get hard. And life may be hard for you now. And you're not going to sit down and you're not going to look into the eyes of your child and say, Mom, Dad couldn't afford Christmas because of X, Y, Z. They don't want to hear that. They won't relate. They'll never remember that except that creepy time that Dad took me aside and was like explaining adult things to me about, how the economy works. They're going to be watching you on how you react to everything. Some of the strongest, some of the kindest, some of the most resilient people you and I both know did not grow up with abundance. They grew up with stability. They grew up with laughter in the kitchen. They grew up watching their mom and dad hug, say a kind word to each other, apologize to one another. They grew up with a father who was dead tired, but showed up anyway. I can guarantee you, your kids are not going to remember the things they didn't get. They will remember, in the end, the things that made them feel safe. They will remember the sound of your voice. They will remember that even when you were worried, you were the one that stood between them and fear. That's not failure. That's fatherhood. And it's the most important thing. I feel you because I have been there. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not less than. You're not a failure. Take courage. You're laying the foundation that cannot be purchased, cannot be stolen, cannot be replaced. No gift you can wrap will ever replace that. Long after the toys are gone and the batteries and the trends have changed, your children are going to stand on what you built, and your children will call it home.